Uh, Dear UBI advocates from different corners of the world, you are all very welcome. We hope you are all well and safe. This is Ali Mutlu Köylüoğlu from Citizens Basic Income Research, Development, Culture and Dissemination Society, Istanbul, Turkey. While discussing with our dear friend Hilde Latour from Netherlands, she is also from Basic Income, the Netherlands, we thought we need an international web-based communication platform where we can discuss and share our UBI advocacy efforts. The master idea is that UBI advocates and UBI networks from different corners of the world should be in close communication, interaction, and cooperation as much as possible. We plan to record this Zoom session, especially for the UBI advocates who are not able to join us today. And as we agreed all together at the beginning of this session is being recorded and will be shared at YouTube. And this is a gathering of UBI advocates as individuals. Once again, we would like to thank you very much for your participation and also looking forward to hear your contributions. I have a few names here. We will start with Hilde Latour from Basic Income, the Netherlands. Maybe 3 minutes maximum is a good timing for giving for receiving your contributions. Of course, you can ask to contribute for more than once, but please kindly raise your hands from that tool, which is at the bottom of the participants area. So let's start with our dear friend Hilde. Hilde, where is your name? Okay, here. Hilde, the word is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ali. First, I would like to compliment you for this great initiative and your other initiatives to moderate and record discussions between basic income advocates from different corners of the world. And the amount of participants is impressive and shows that we're all fired up. The consequences of the lockdown policies are devastating in all our countries. Although in countries like India, the situation is much worse than in my country, the Netherlands, still many people in the United States and Europe are in despair as well. So let this be the time when we unite as human beings, no matter where we come from, what our beliefs are, or where we live. We are in this together and we will get out of it together. Basic income discussions have exploded as a response to the lockdown, and many basic income groups and advocates have taken initiatives already to influence their governments through petitions, letters, interviews, social media, lobbying, and so on. But we have a global emergency and we are a global network. And I think it is important that we do something as a global network and show our unity in this. Which brings me immediately to my proposal, which is a call for action. Send a letter on behalf of Basic Income Earth Network, representing all affiliates and even the basic income groups that are not yet affiliates of Basic Income Earth Network, and send a letter to one, the spiritual leaders like Pope Francis, the Dalai Lama, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and more. And two, send a letter on behalf of the worldwide basic income movement to the United Nations. And we should ask them to encourage all national governments to do everything in their power to implement an unconditional emergency basic income as soon as possible. And we should emphasize the importance of unconditionality. And I know there has been a lot of discussion in the past about what activity BIEN as an organization is allowed to undertake as an educational charity. However, I understand from the UK Register of Charities that BIEN is allowed to conduct activities, and I would really would like to encourage the Executive Committee of BIEN to use our logo as a worldwide organization in this letter, because I think it would give us more power to do so. So maybe Malcolm can later on respond to that, because he's more familiar with the true possibilities that we have as a basic income movement. Yeah, that's it, basically. I'll give the word to the next one.
Thank you, Hilde. Is it possible for you to write a sentence to the chat box about your proposal? I mean, just defining it so that it will be in the records also. I'm trying to take notes here, but also there may be some other similar proposals. Maybe they can be merged in the future phases. I will continue with Barb Jacobson. Barb Jacobson from UK. Dear Barb, I saw your name. Where was it? Okay, here. Barb, word is yours.
Okay, hi. Yeah, I've found it really difficult to keep up with the international things going on. I think this has been really great, and thank you to Ali for organizing all these chats. Yeah, I think it's been really useful, and again, I mean, as Hilda said, I mean, the situation in different parts of the world is very different, and yeah. Just to say, in the UK, we've had a huge mobilization for an emergency basic income, which won quite a bit of support from Parliament right before they finished. I think while we didn't win that, at this time, I think going forward, we're going to have a very strong parliamentary lobby for it, which will be great. And people are already talking about some kind of recovery basic income, which will also be interesting to deal with. There have been several proposals, UBI Lab Sheffield proposal. There's been one from a think tank called Autonomy here, and also from the Royal Society for the Arts, which has been great that they've kind of put stuff out as soon as possible. I mean, the main problem here is that there is no mechanism for delivering it. The benefit system and the tax system have completely separate lists of people. The government doesn't seem to have the imagination to, uprate child benefit, which goes to everybody with children in this country. And yeah, I mean, the self-employed are having to wait until June to get any money. And yeah, there's also been huge problems with people applying for unemployment benefit. Plus the fact that, people who've been furloughed or have had to, not work for a while, their money is completely dependent on their employers, first of all, not firing them first, and second of all, actually getting them the money. So yeah, I mean, really, really fantastic to see everybody here, and I look forward to being able to combine our efforts. Thanks.
Barb, thank you very much. Hilda, thank you for your contributions at the chat box. You have two proposals, 1 and 2, if I'm not mistaken. So if a new one comes, maybe we should use number 3 for the new proposal so that we can handle it at one time during the session. Barb, do you have a specific proposal at this stage? No, I guess.
There are three proposals floating around out there. There are 3 specific proposals. Different.
But just for this group to make a decision, I mean, do you have anything specific for this group during this chat to make a decision?
A decision about what?
For example, Hilde said that a letter should be prepared and.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So I'm continuing with Carl Weideguist. Carl, are you here? You should be here.
Yes, I'm here. I just unmuted my microphone.
Okay. Word is yours.
Okay. I don't have any specific comments. The idea of a letter sounds good if somebody wants to draft it. I'm sure we could all put our names on it. I think one thing since my editorial came out about 2 weeks ago that I've noticed in the development is that initially people were saying, oh, flat, give everybody money. very much moving toward a basic income and connecting it with the basic income debate. And in those couple of weeks, most places have just added one condition after another, moving away and farther away from the basic income model. Spain has announced this introduction of basic income, which apparently has almost nothing to do with basic income. So at least we're the point politically where people want to steal our name. But we have to resist that. I think it's really important to criticize all of these basic income and UBI and name income proposals that are going around, and criticize them for what they're doing wrong and why they fall short, why their failure to use a basic income model is going to help them, is going to be part of the cause of them failing to people. You add conditions and you lose the most needy, because they're the hardest. They're the people who have the most difficulty proving that they meet any conditions. Even the condition is, we're not giving it to billionaires. It's really hard for a homeless person to prove he's not a billionaire or she's not a billionaire. And they're adding just one condition after another, feeding into the idea that the privileged people have the right and responsibility to judge the less privileged. That's where all this stuff about conditions comes out, is people want to think they're better than the less well-off and want to judge them. And basic income is about giving that. And these proposals that are adding in all these harsh judgments, or even seemingly not harsh judgments, these have to be resisted.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you very much. I have one last one before the raised hands. Dear Alexander Dero. Okay, Alexander's here. Alexander, dear Alexander, where is, okay, here. Okay,
yes,
word is yours,
me?
Alexander.
Yes. Well, I written also a chat. We had a meeting. We had a great demonstration 26th of October last year in 30 cities. And that was basically started by the Americans. My idea, we have already agreed that this year we will want to have a big global march for basic income on the 19th of September. I know it's still 5 months away, but it also means we have 5 months to prepare. And we hope that in a lot of countries, then it will be possible to go on the streets again. And people want to go on the streets. And that we can show them that we really increased our organization and our way of mobilizing people. Because last year it was 30 cities, and I think this year it must be possible to have at least 100 cities. And in that way, at least for one day, we will get the global attention of all the media that basic income is the way forward. That is basically my proposal, and you have it already in the chat box. And for a good demonstration, you need time to organize. Last year, we did it in 6 weeks, 4 or 5, maybe 6 weeks. That was too short. We know now already that we want to organize it on the 9th of September. And I think in a lot of countries, it will be possible, because more and more countries are now already starting to relax the situation with the coronavirus. And I think on the 9th of September, we could be all on full steam and have a real global event which makes an impact, and show that we are there as an organization of bien. Because last time it was basically organized by some other groups of the United States. And I think bien, we have 35 national organizations, and they should all start to mobilize and work in that direction. That is my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Eduardo, are you trying to raise your hand? Okay, I'm taking my note. I will continue with where is she? Guyleen Middleton. Miss Guyleen Middleton, are you there? Okay, I couldn't reach her, so we can continue with Hüsniye Güngör. Hüsniye, word is yours.
Hi. Yeah, I'm invited by you actually, Ali. Yeah.
Okay, you better continue.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. So this is the first time I'm just hearing about you, the organization. So I was informed by my managers from the Daily Dünya to attend and see what you guys are doing. So just if you let me listen to you,
okay,
then maybe
okay.
then I can write some questions for you. Is that okay?
Sure, thank you very much. Hannes, word is yours. Hannes?
I didn't actually have something to say. I was just applauding, not raising my hand. Sorry.
You are not raising your hands. Okay. Karen, Karen, yes.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Yes, I raised my hand. I'm from South Africa. And I just want to second what Alexander from the Netherlands said. And I think perhaps what Ben can do is to write just a formal letter for us stating, you know, that that Ben will be doing a march in September, so that those of us in countries can actually go to organizations in our countries that are pro a basic income, and that we can start organizing such a march ahead of time. I think it's a really good idea. And then just overall in South Africa, we're on day 10 of lockdown. And I think similar to India, we've been experiencing a lot of problems with police brutality, domestic violence. People are not really staying in their homes due to poverty and conditions being quite terrible in their homes. And there has been some calls for basic income, but it has really been crowded out by the debate about whether South Africa should be borrowing money from the IMF or not, because, you know, we're really in financial deep trouble, and we've been downgraded to junk status. So it's having a terrible economic impact on us. Yes, so it is indeed difficult times for us here in South Africa.
Thank you, Karen. We will continue with Eduardo Splisi. Eduardo?
Yes. Well, I have written a message to the Bien friends telling about the good news that last week the Brazilian National Congress has approved a law through which there will be an emergency benefit to all Brazilians, adults 18 years or more that with a family income up to 300 minimum wages, up to 3 minimum wages, and or to all families where the per capita income is up to half the minimum wage. And for all of these persons, there will be a emergency basic income of $120, 600 reais per month. And today the government has is organizing an application for everyone who are within those conditions to apply for, and through the internet. So it is possible that in the next 3 months, and this will be an emergency basic income of 600 reais per month to all Brazilians, adults that do not receive at least half minimum wage, or in families with income per capita with income up to 3 minimum wages for the family. And it is considered that the government considers that 54 million Brazilians in a population of 210 million Brazilians will be receiving this benefit for the next 3 months, and depending on the if the coronavirus continues, then this will be added for 3 or more months. And so this is, I believe that it is a step towards the citizens' basic income. It is very important that the Brazilian, the Rede Brasileira da Renda Básica, Leandro Ferreira, who is the president of this, the Brazilian Network for a Basic Income, it is also participating, and we believe that we are having a very important step towards the basic income, because the Brazilian society will have the conditions to appreciate what will be the effects of having for more than 1/4 of the Brazilian population a emergency basic income, and this will have effects on the economy. And so never have the basic income concepts being so much debated, discussed, and considered in Brazil. And we have already a city, the Maricá, in the coast of Rio de Janeiro, that is already paying for 1/4 of the population 130 mumbucas or reais per month, a sort of a social money. And the expectation is that by the end of 2020, half of the 162,000 inhabitants will be receiving the basic income, and by 2024, all the population, the 160 so many thousand inhabitants of Maricá will be receiving a basic income, and this is also a pioneer experience. I hope, well, I will have in a few minutes to be in another meeting here in the City Council of São Paulo, but I would like to know that to tell you that we are very optimistic about the steps towards the universal, unconditional basic income in Brazil and all over our countries on earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eduardo. Miss Guyleen Middleton, would you like to, because you raised your hands previously, did you change your mind? Okay. The word is yours.
It's Ian Middleton here. What we're doing in New Zealand is we're attempting to lobby our government. Just a few months ago, our Minister of Finance said that he would not be introducing basic income, but last few days it was revealed that basic income is back on the table and it might be considered. So what we've done here is set up a web page to provide as much information as possible on basic income in the current situation. And we have been lobbying leaders of the government coalition, so the leaders of the parties and the Minister of Finance. Not very much positive feedback so far, except they have acknowledged the emails that we've sent them, or that I've particularly sent them. and it's been passed on to the Minister of Social Development for her information. So we're sort of quietly optimistic that something might come of this, but that's about all the feedback we can give you at the moment.
Thank you very much for this interesting and good news. Dear friends, is it possible to talk closer to your laptops so that we will have a better recording, so that maybe we can even make a text of it, because very interesting news are coming from different corners of the world. I mean, after Eduardo with Mr. Middleton. So if you can come closer to your laptops, it will be better. Next contribution is from Diana Bashur. Diana, word is yours.
Thank you, Ali. Can you hear me well? Can you hear me well?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I just would like to comment on Hilde's suggestion for a letter to the United Nations. I used to work at the United Nations in New York, and I was on the receiving end of some letters. So I just wanted to ask where you had, Hilde, you had intended to send the letter. So which department, or is it more generally to the Secretary General? And from my point of view, I think it would be really helpful if we actually include what Carl suggested. So if we highlight how something other than a true UBI, if it's implemented, would in fact be harming the people instead of truly helping them. I think this is where our strengths and value could be in such a letter. And I think also highlighting these differences in what a real basic income is and what is not would kind of force, or not a force, but encourage a reflection on the part of the receiving people of this letter. I can also help with the drafting if you need. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. I would like to mention something. You know the chat box. If you do kindly mention your names and countries, then we will have an understanding from which countries there are representation in this meeting. Now we will continue with Jim from Canada, Jim Mulwale. Jim, word is yours.
Thanks, Ali, and thanks once again for organizing the meeting. I guess I've got a little bit different take on where we're at and how we should be thinking strategically. And of course, I'm kind of referring to our situation here in Canada. Actually, since the advent of the crisis, of the pandemic, the federal government has done, I think, what in my view have been taken some very positive steps. They've announced enhancement of our child benefit, at least on a temporary basis for families with young children, and it's a basic income-like benefit for young families. They've announced a very modest increase in a negative income tax program called the Goods and Services Rebate or Refund. And I think most importantly, they've relaxed restrictions on unemployment insurance, and they've also announced quite a sizable program called the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which is geared to people who are not eligible for unemployment insurance. And I think it's actually being modified to bring in some additional people. So I know a few people have talked about, we have to be insistent on the government's doing like a kind of a pure basic income. And I mean, to be frank, I think I disagree with that strategy. I think we're in a situation right now where the rules are changing, where assumptions are being turned upside down about how the economy should operate or how the wealth of our society should be redistributed. So I think we're really in an important place right now not to let the perfect become an enemy of the good. And to think, governments are doing things speedily because they have to. We're in an emergency. And we shouldn't get too hung up on the precise details of all the emergency measures. I think the challenge for us is to, as the pandemic subsides and as we reach kind of a new situation, it won't be the normal as we used to know it. But I think we need to think about, as the basic income movement, how can we develop principles to see these temporary emergency measures become something closer to a real basic income, if not a single program in specific countries, maybe a set of programs that would mimic or that would reflect basic income principles around unconditionality, around a comprehensive reach, around an adequacy of the benefit for all people in the given country. So that's my thought right now. It's kind of a strategic thing that I think would help us get to where we want to go eventually.
Thank you very much, Jim. We will continue with Amy Van Cleef. Amy, the word is yours.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Ali, thank you so much for organizing. And I think it's a really valuable discussion you're having here globally. And I would like to thank everybody around the world who is pushing the idea of UBI amidst the crisis we are in. And actually, I had a question, and I agree with Jim that we are talking about on a strategic level as well. And I would also want to say, I thought the contribution of Diana was really well formulated, how the letter can be formed, also pointing out the differences. And also Eduardo, I think an emergency basic income will be a great step towards some sort of another UBI or a citizen-based basic income right now. And so I think right now is the time to make progress. And actually my question that I had also shared with you in advance of the meeting, what on a strategic level, how can you frame and portray UBI in the face of the crisis? So what are the specific benefits that are in this economic kind of meltdown we're going to be in, are going to be specifically helpful? And for example, especially for example UBI's ability to stimulate demand, increase the velocity of money, and to keep the real economy kind of going, rather than only inflate the economy of the rich. So that was actually a question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. Real me. Real me. Who is real me? I cannot. Okay, word is yours, real me.
I am real me. Sorry, I'm Ranjini Murthy from India.
Welcome. Welcome.
I think Sarath will be briefing you on the Indian situation in depth. I'm not going to do that, except highlight that there are gender issues as well. When we speak of universal basic income, the children should go to the women. But here I want to really talk about opportunities for advocating basic income at global and national level. One is the UN Security Council, the other is the World Food Program based in Rome. They get into emergency relief and they're treating this as a disaster. The other I feel is interparliamentarian forums, which are going to happen if we can track which are the interparliamentary forums and push the universal basic income, because if one country does it, then the other countries want to do it. So that is one. And the other opportunity is universal progress reviews of the human rights situation which happen, and that is an opportunity to get the countries which are going to be reviewed to push for basic income and the voluntary national reports linked to sustainable development goals. So we need to be strategic in what we advocate and push it as a permanent measure through various accountability mechanisms that exist.
Excuse me. I guess a participant is sharing his. Okay, you know it. I'm sorry. Would you please repeat your last two sentences because of this?
Okay. Yeah, the last two was pushing the universal basic income agenda through the universal progress reviews, which happen of the Human Rights Council, which every year some countries are picked up and there are shadow reports and the Human Rights Committee gives recommendations. So if we can advocate there so that it becomes institutionalized within countries and not a one-off response to COVID. The other is, the last one is voluntary national reviews, which is on the SDGs. So if we can push there also, saying that SDGs can never be achieved without a universal basic income. So if we could strategically use accountability mechanisms, it will be good.
Thank you very much, but I couldn't, I mean, I will re-listen them, but at the moment I have only 4 very solid proposals, which are a letter to the spiritual leaders, a letter to the United Nations, criticizing the existing proposals which do not conform with the expectations of the UBI, and also to allocate resources for the march in September. Anyhow, we will continue and then we will try to gather them. Then we will continue with Vikas. Vikas, word is yours. Vikas, we cannot hear you well. Vikas? Vikas, are you there? Oh, we cannot hear you, Vikas. Vikas, I am sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, we will continue with Leandro. Leandro, word is yours.
I'm here. Could you please skip my turn because I'm just getting to the elevator and I'll be happy to go next.
Okay, Geoffrey.
First of all, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Ali, for this global effort, as well as everyone. And my contribution is, I put it on the chat box. I contributed 5 points that could start off a global position paper of the BN that could be given to all the parties at national and international levels. And you can read it for yourself, so I save everyone time. And with regard to the news, Australia and the Philippines has also been considering more seriously the universal basic income approaches. So we've done a good job, at least in those 2 countries, even if there was hesitation in Australia like there was in New Zealand. There's now a serious consideration of the idea. So I suggest we continue, and I congratulate everyone in this group and our friends around the world for promoting the idea. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Leandro, are you still in the elevator?
No, just left. Thank you, Eli.
Okay, word is yours.
Yeah, I'm really happy to talk to you all. We are, as Eduardo said, in a very special moment here in Brazil, because although we do have a complete understand of the moment that we live in, that we don't have a full universal and unconditional basic income, we did reach the entire society with our debate. I'll give you an example. We have used our Brazilian Basic Income Network website to collect signatures to support an emergency an emergency basic income, and we reached more than 500,000 people signing our proposal. So more than 500,000 people went to our website and signed this for the Congress to analyze emergency basic income. And we did manage to approve something that resembles our proposal, but it's not what we wanted, because it's for a third of the population and not for the entire population. But this is the first time that we managed to bring new organizations to our institutional proposals, to our debate, to our action together. So it's a very special moment. And we did manage to do that and to give very understandable proposition to the society, because we had the instruments of previous social policy, such as Bolsa Familia program. And for you to have an idea, today is the day that people that are not in Bolsa Familia are being enrolled to this proposal, so they can start to receive the money in the next week. But the instrument used to do so is the same used for Bolsa Familia program. So it's very important that we had this kind of thing prepared, so we do have an opportunity to be very clear and very aware of the limits. So it's an incredible moment. It's the first time it happens that we reached so many people. We do have articles throughout the media. Eduardo and me, we are enjoying the moment to talk to televisions and newspapers that had never been open to our debate before. We consider that we are in a special moment here, aware of the limitations, such as those that Carl raised during his talk here. So yeah, we are very happy, and we hope to share with you as soon as possible more information in English, so you can bring your opinions to our action here in Brazil. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the good news, and looking forward for the documentation. I take some notes. Julio, Annie Miller, and Gerder will be the next three. But before we have Carl Weidegrist. Carl, word is yours, Carl.
I wanted to speak to the issue of not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. Of course, that's really important. Any step in the right direction we want to take, but it's also very important to protect our name, the name of this policy, because a lot of these programs they're going to help some people. A lot of these programs going on, but they're going to have lots of problems with them that UBI doesn't have. And if you call it UBI, then people say, oh, look, this UBI is terrible. It doesn't include children. UBI is terrible. It leaves out the homeless. UBI is terrible. You have to sit on the phone all day with getting no answer while you call up and apply for it. None of those things have anything to do with UBI. When we get proposals that put this kind of stuff in, we need to praise them for the good things they do. And we need to condemn them for the bad things they do and say, okay, you've made a small step in the direction of UBI. That's good. But this is not UBI, and it has these problems that UBI does not have.
Thank you, Carl. Julio Linares. Julio,
Yes.
word is yours, Julio.
Thank you, and thank you, Carl, for that intervention. I agree totally. And to that point, I would like to propose to you all and invite you all to write pieces of opinion, informing the people about what's going on in each of your countries. And please send them to me, and we will try to put them on the BN website on behalf of social outreach, and also to Malcolm, so we can have a more informed discussion of what's going on. I think that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Annie Miller, do you hear me, Annie? Dear Annie?
Yes, hello everyone.
Okay.
I want I want to endorse what Carl has been saying. Yes, and encourage people to do some right things, congratulate them when they have, but don't call it basic income. Basic income must be kept for our own policies, and other people must find other names. And it's not that we want to reject the related concepts, because they can do good things. It's just they don't do enough good things. So keep the name basic income for the definition we have on our website. That's what's important. That's the reference point for our definition. So that's my point. Thank you.
Tamam. Thank you very much, Amy. Gerder, you were raising hand. Gerder, are you there? Yeah, here. Okay. Gerder, word is yours.
Yeah, I want to agree with Carl about the name, and because basic income, I can see it happening here, that our government is using basic income as for something completely different. It's a stimulation for the businesses, and the businesses are invest. You know, it's a very dubious kind of. I mean, as it looks like, it's not. They're not. It does not go to the people in need at all. But and then on the other hand, if they will implement UBI to people in general, then that will also stimulate, because people are also taking a job and diminishing their work, like 25% part work and things like that. But if people would get the basic income as we are thinking about it, that would stimulate the economy, because we're always talking about the big crisis of the economy. The big companies cannot do this and that. But if a more wider UBI will be implemented, it will stimulate and help the economy. The companies also, of course, they can reach completely different agreements with the people who are working in the company, and it will turn more into a circular teamwork company, probably. I think that UBI will turn the economy, the harakiri economy that we had adopted, into a circular economy. And what I was also thinking, that is, we are thinking about a united rescue in this period, but we are not talking about our united responsibility of the situation we are sitting in, besides the corona, because the corona is just a wake-up call. It pinches us all over the place in our, in our bodies, but we are not going back. There is no normality that we want to go back. The coronavirus joined Greta Thunberg, to scream because our house is burning, and she's screaming that, and nobody listens to her, nobody listens to that. So I think that we have to use this opportunity to take the world, to take the earth into the whole picture. And when we approach the United Nations or World Bank or whoever, then we have to acknowledge our responsibility. Look at India, that's a hub of our wealth, more or less. They produce for, if we would really participate in what is happening there, because it's our responsibility, not only for the government of India or these countries. We are the ones who are keeping the wages down. We are the ones who don't want to work with the child labor, but we don't want to pay the parents. So we have to, I think, take much more responsibility also into the whole package, not only, rescuing this at this period. Do you know? Yeah, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, because I think that the UBI will water the prosperity of societies all over the world. That is what I have now. And I was thinking also about the week in September. I think, like me and Hilda were talking about, it would be great to turn it also into an art festival, because a lot of artists are not on fixed salary. They are the most used people to do things for free. But if we would turn this also into an art festival, to have all the creative minds really put their energy into this week, that will show people how all the treasure we have in humanity. Like I can see here in Iceland, because we are so small, that everybody is now in quarantine, but our TV and everything, it's like a big art festival in the TV. There's unbelievable things coming to light, and people are enjoying each other company. And I think we have to, put our effort more into that also.
Thank you, Gerda. Thank you very much. I have Jim. Jim, did you change your mind?
I'll just make a very quick point. I don't want to. There's a number of people that haven't had a chance to speak, and this is my second turn now. Actually, Gerda made an excellent point about if we can strategically build on the good things that are happening, that, programs, proposals coming out on an emergency short-term basis that kind of resemble basic income more than the benefit structures that came before. I think we should do that. And I think Gerda's point, tying this into broader sort of issues of environmental economics, is really important, that we need this secure economic floor. We can get there in perhaps different ways in different countries, calling it basic income, calling it whatever it needs to be to provide unconditional, adequate, and comprehensive economic support for people. But also make the case that this pandemic seemingly took us by surprise. It shouldn't have, perhaps, but it did. But there's going to be other crises and other challenges in years ahead. They could be, other public health emergencies like pandemics. They could be environmental calamities that have faced many parts of the world, including Australia with the wildfires recently. We're in a very uncertain and risk-filled global society now, and without getting too hung up on what we're calling benefits, we need to be moving our governments towards this sort of secure economic floor underneath everybody. That would, among other things, allow us to, as Greta Thunberg has reminded us, slow down the economy, reach steady state economics, and also ensure an environmentally healthy planet for our children and grandchildren. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. We will continue with Nicole and then Malcolm. But also, I saw that Peter Knight is here. Peter, I will continue after Malcolm with you. And Valeria, I saw you too. We were discussing based on your ideas. So we will continue with Nicole first. Okay. Yes. Word is yours, Nicole.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah. Yes, very good.
Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. It's good to see you. And thanks, Ali, for the organization of this meeting. Maybe just to share a bit of what we have here in France. First, I wanted also to agree with what Carl said about the importance of what we call actually a basic income and what it is not. And with the French movement for a basic income, we also published an article of opinion about the basic income in this context of emergency, and we did some interviews. We proposed a translation for the BN website also. Just wanted to say that we're quite cautious about the notion of emergency associated with the idea of basic income. First, because politically we actually see some risks. For example, in France, the social protection system is already quite strong, even if it has a lot of defaults as well, but it's strong. And the tendency in the past years has been to weaken it a little more and more. And there's a project from the part of the current government that is called a universal income of activity, which is actually quite the contrary of what we support as a basic income. It's the idea of putting more conditionality to the minimum income and social aids. And so it's really a logical of sanction and controlling more the unemployed so that they can't refuse a job offer. So also with the word basic income, we see in France that it's being used politically to defend some projects that are actually at the opposite of basic income. So we are very cautious. And so in this article we wrote with the MFAB, we wanted also to point out the fact that it is important not to make the economy of having a true democratic debate around what kind of basic income we really need and we want in our societies. I'm aware that the context is very different according to the country, but for us in France, we see that the social protection system could also be at risk with all this tendency of seeing different kinds of what is called basic income, but it's not a really basic income. So maybe a proposition would also be to couple the letters to the United Nations, etc., but also to have real democratic debates. And I think this kind of meeting we are having today is one of these debates we are really needing. So thanks again, Ali, for that.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Thank you for your contributions. In my notes, I have Malcolm next, and then Peter Knight, Valeria, then Ingun. Bob, you changed your mind, I guess. Oh, you are there. You are there. Okay. After Geoffrey. Okay.
Ali,
Malcolm,
my name and Paul.
Pardon?
Paul Harnett has been raising his hand. And can you add my name as well?
Okay, but can you also just put into the list, Sarat? I'm taking notes, but okay. After Barb, Paul, and Sarat. Okay, Malcolm, word is yours.
Thank you for organising all of this. I've been impressed by your previous conversations as well, Ali, that you've been organising. Most useful to hear them. I'd like to just emphasise one or two things that have already been said and to try and put them together a little bit, if I may. First of all, please do respond to Julio's request. If Julio can collect as much information as possible about what's going on in each country, you can either send it to Julio or to me. Then we shall have something that we can put together. It'd be particularly useful to know the details of what different governments are doing, to what extent those new projects conform to the definition of a basic income, and to what extent they do not. So to have people tell us, first of all, what governments are doing, and secondly, how close and how far those are from a genuine basic income will be very useful. It will provide us with educational material that we can put out. I'm a volunteer working with the Executive Committee of BN. I cannot speak for BN, but members of BN will be aware how complex the organisation is in many respects because it is a registered charity. Putting together an agreed statement of some kind can be difficult and can fail. First of all, because the Executive Committee would have to agree it, and secondly, a General Assembly. Sadly, with the Charity Commission's permission to all organisations this year to cancel annual general meetings, that is General Assemblies, because there is to be no Congress in Brisbane this year because of the coronavirus crisis, there's to be no General Assembly either, and a notice will be coming out about that soon. There will be the usual ballots, but they will all be done by post. This means that any agreement to put anything out will have to wait another year and a half, and clearly that's not sustainable. One thing which we could do is once we have received sufficient information, we could make available an article to which individuals and national campaigns can refer. This is to some extent how the Citizens Basic Income Trust in the UK works. We put out educational material, and you'll find some material on our website at the moment about the coronavirus crisis. And other organisations and individuals in the UK can then make use of that in their own campaigns. The more organisations involved in this, the better. The more individuals who are involved in this, the better. BN has a particular role, which it needs to fulfill as well as possible. And I think one of the ways we can do that is to make sure that there is something substantial on the front of the website to which people can refer. We have had a problem recently with the news service and the website. I hope we've now solved that at the Executive Committee last Sunday. I'm now largely responsible for making sure that that works. And I'm hoping that you will all send your information to Julio. I'm very happy to answer questions and all of that. And I'm sure Sarath and Julio will be as well, who are both here. And Sarath, I notice, is going to speak in a moment. Thanks, Ali, for doing this.
Thank you, Malcolm. At this stage, I would like to add something. Tara is here. Tara is a student in UK, a friend of mine's daughter, and we talked with her. I'm just, I should share it to everyone. We try to gather a table about a comparison table regarding the different approaches from different countries. I put the questions in our minds there. Maybe we can discuss on it also in the future. Let me continue with Peter Knight. Peter, are you there? Oh, Peter, where is Peter? Okay, Peter Knight, dear Peter, word is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I am in Rio, but since Leandro has covered Brazil, and I understand that also Eduardo has also spoken, then I will say a little bit about the US, since I don't see, even though I'm here late, many people from the US. So as probably you've seen from the newspaper, there is official government policy passed by Congress to send a payment to not universal group, but closest to it that the government has just come. But perhaps more interesting from our point of view is that what the Andrew Yang movement, the Humanity Forward movement, has set up a private organization, a nonprofit that will be giving money and is already giving money before the government checks come out to some people at several $1 million, which is nothing, a drop in the bucket. But at least it's also doing other things like supporting, endorsing candidates for positions below president, senators, representatives, state representatives, and so forth that are running on platforms of UBI or other humanity forward parts of the Yang platforms. So I think that's an interesting phenomenon to follow. I'm sad to say that we have not seen the Democratic presumptive candidate to run against Trump, Joe Biden, take a position in favor of universal or emergency UBI, although he has a good relationship with Andrew. That has not happened, and it's been rather sad. He's been quite quiet, while meanwhile we have Trump saying his idiocies every day on a news conference. I'm not sure what the strategy is with Biden, but in the meantime, there's a great deal of activity on the so-called Yang tubers and others to publicize and give interviews for people who are supporting universal basic income at in other political races. I guess that's enough. I'll paste the link to movehumanityforward.com, which is the new 401c4, I think is the formal designation. It can engage in political activity. It's a nonprofit and it takes contributions. So you can contribute if you're interested, if you're in the US or elsewise. There's also another Humanity Forward Fund, which is a PAC, super PAC, which is a political action committee. And they're also working, they have the same name, but a different, it's humanityforward.com, and Yang's is movehumanityforward.com. Interesting to look at. I think that's enough. There's so many people here who probably want to speak. I'm sorry for being late.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for your contributions. Dear friends, I would like to read the list in my, here in this paper, because I see some hands. I think they are not able to raise hands through the screen because they are using mobile phones. So Valeria is the next one. Ingun, Geoffrey, Barb. Gerda requested a small additional part after Barb. Paul, Sarat, Vikas, and Peter. Peter, I saw your hands also. Thank you. So Valeria, word is yours. Where is Valeria?
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ali, for inviting me. I'm coming from Slovenia. I'm coordinator of Slovenian Basic Income Movement. I have to admit that in Slovenia, I have a feeling that we are victims of success because we have no movement among people for basic income. Only enterprises and all the people in the government are asking for basic income. The problem is they don't know what they are asking or they would like to have. We introduced basic income for self-employed. It's called like that, but it's typical conditional transfer. So it's actually what we heard today already. They're stealing the name and using it in the wrong direction. What I would like to point out that even if I am for basic income in cash for all those years, I'm very scared that money won't be the same value after the crisis. That's why I started to build up the scheme of basic items and also about basic work. Everything what I'm proposing is very dangerous to be stealed and used by state in the wrong manner. That's why I'm right now going to the campaign on the local level to teach mayors how to organize their local communities and to organize local communities according to basic income principles. So individual, uniform, and universal policies. Okay, I was out and I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Valeria. So next contributions are from Ingun. Ingun.
Yes, hello. Very good to see you all. I'm very happy to be invited and being here, but I think Anya will be the one who is speaking from Norway. So if you are there, Anya, you can unmute yourself and then go on the speech.
We will receive Anya's contributions too. You are complete, or do you change your, you don't want to continue?
Anya is speaking for Norway.
Oh, okay. Anya is here.
Yes, it says Byene Norge.
Yes, now I see. Anya? Anya?
Yes.
Yes, word is yours.
Yes, oh, thank you. I thought there was a long list of people in front. Well, anyway, thank you very much, Ali, for doing this. I'm so happy to see all these people together and discussing this and get this all new possibilities for promoting basic income. I just have to say in Norway, we also had a lockdown, closed schools and restricted travel, but the situation is pretty well under control here. Most people have respected the restrictions and yeah, so things are quite good actually. if we compare with the situation in India and other countries. So in all this, we have discussed and promoted our own version of basic income, emergency basic income, and I think it can tick off quite a few of those boxes. So I just want to tell you how we have thought about it. This is based on Kalle Moenes. He's a Norwegian economist. He has a proposal, so we have worked further on his proposal. We want to give 19,000 to everyone, every grown-up between 18 and 67, then they are retired. We decided the amount should be half of median income, which is OECD's poverty line, which is kind of, it's higher than the minimum disability income. Yeah, so that was the suggestions. There is a few specifications on the payouts. The amount should be paid out every month for 3 months to come, with the possibility of prolonging it. So we hope for that, of course, a permanent version. Our system is very complicated. We have a lot of different welfare benefits, and the government has also tried to give people help, but the system has struggled to get it paid out. So we have decided, we try to suggest that you can choose not to receive the cash if you do not need it. And unemployed will receive post-paid the unemployment benefit, which exceeds the amount of this 19,000. Well, everyone who has less income, irrespective of the connection with their work and life, will keep the whole amount. Yeah, so in the end of the year, the cash amount can then be settled in relation to the tax settlement, if that is the correct word. The amount will be deducted when they look from the full from the tax. We have 100. We want also to raise the level for not taxable income up to 150,000, and the people who does not reach this income, of course, keep it, and the rest will get 11,000 in reduction in taxes. So we decided to promote this as a way to avoid all the complications on calculating details on who should have what, and as a solution to the bureaucratic problem of paying this out. A big problem also in Norway is how forgotten all the people who really need it the most. They are the last in the queue now because the unemployed are prioritized in the debate. So they are totally overseen. So in this way, we can lift all. This proposal has been emailed to every member of the parliament, and we have a petition going. So yes, this is our suggestion. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Ingun, would you like to add anything about Norway's? Ingun?
Yes, well, I don't have to add anything actually. So I'm looking forward to hearing the others. So thank you.
Thank you, Ingun. Dear friends, in my list, I have Geoffrey, Barb, Gerder, Paul, Sarat, Vikas, Peter 2, Suhobana, and Carl. And remember, we said after 90 minutes, we will give a 10 minutes break if you are, if you think, I mean, this was our decision. So I will continue with Geoffrey. But in the meantime, is there anybody, okay, we will continue with Geoffrey. We cannot. Geoffrey, word is yours.
Dat is het. Joh, thanks. Ik zag de week Akkurat da jeg skulle ut og røyke, for jeg hadde reist hånda mi opp. Jeg fant ikke ut hvordan jeg skulle gjøre det, så skulle Ingunn gjøre det. Anja...
Ali, you have to unmute him.
Yes, I'm trying to find him, but he...
No.
Okay, Geoffrey, now word is yours, Geoffrey.
All right, just to add to the points I previously made on the chat box, the UBI, it has to be clear that the UBI is not an emergency or a one-off response, but it is integral, number 8, to the reform and restructuring of the economy that many have mentioned is marked by marginalized sectors like gender, unsustainable growth, degraded environments, and corruption in government. And difficult as it may to make a statement, we still need to be heard. So we really need a letter to be put out in major areas of discourse, whether it be in the UN, the European Union, even religious congregations. We need a statement to come out there. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Barb?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, I think, you know, you should be taking people that haven't spoken yet. Like Paul Harnett has had his hand up for ages because other people I can see. Yeah, and I'll speak later. All right.
Thank you, Barb. In fact, I am writing messages to raise the hands, but okay. So we will continue with, okay, Paul, word is yours.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, first of all, yeah, I'm Paul Harnett. Most of you, or some of you, know that I'm from World Basic Income. So we've actually looked at how to roll out basic income all across the world. I think it's a great idea to go, technical point. If you want to get in the queue to raise your hand, you click on the participants button at the bottom, and then that opens a box that allows you to raise your hand. It took me a while to work that one out. Okay, yeah, so back to the letter. I think it's a really good idea. I think it's a good idea to decide where to target it. But I've got a few issues that really need to be thought of carefully, I think, with regards to the letter. And the first thing is that we should talk about coverage. If you're asking countries to implement a basic income, then as we've just heard from Anya, it's likely that citizens, non-citizens in those countries may not receive it. Illegal migrants may not receive it. So it's really important to ensure that every single person within that country receives it, not just citizens. I think we have to be concrete about our suggestions for poorer countries. The fact is, asking poorer countries to implement a basic income is essentially a non-starter, with the possible exceptions of India and China, if you want to call them poor, but they are actually middle income. India is particularly interesting as it's got 25% of the poorest people in the world in their country. But yeah, we need to be really bold about our suggestions for poorer countries. Now, aid money could be used to ensure that a basic income goes into many poor countries. For years, we've said that there should be a fund globally, and I'd like to go back really to what Gudrun said, and that is that this is a unique opportunity and that we can actually tie it into the climate crisis and also the vast levels of inequality in the world. And a decision could be made as to whether or not we decide to go for an international fee on carbon extraction that would then fund a World Basic Income Fund. That's one option. On our website, we've got many options: digital data, intellectual property. I could go on forever, but I won't go on forever, so I'll just make one final point. I can't remember who said it, but I think it's really important to include children. Some people say that children should receive half of the basic income. We've always said that children should receive the full amount. And ordinarily, that child's basic income should be routed through the mother. Obviously, you can guess if they haven't got a mother, then it should go to the guardian, and so on and so on. So that's my final point there. But I think that we need, the letter's important, but we need to really beef it up, basically. Okay.
Thank you, Paul. It's about 90 minutes. Gerda would like to add a small thing. Gerda, okay, would you like to add that? Okay, what is yours?
Okay. Yeah, I want to second that. That I believe that UBI should be a birthright. It should not. So everybody should get it wherever they are. And one thing which we were talking about, the global necessity, and I think that is much more important for the whole world to solve the poverty, the slavery in these countries that the utterly poor people are living, because our everybody's welfare depends on that. And I was thinking that if we ask for, we demand basic income for everybody, for the fugitives, for the poorest, for everybody, then what will happen, I think, is that the value of work will change, because the basic income is to live or to survive, but the value of work is to add to your life prosperities. So that's a different thing. It is a survival kit, and it is the work input value. And if we do that, we start to value the work, because we will demand that they get payment, money for the work. Our goods will be more expensive, so we will buy less, hopefully, and for more, and that will be like a circular minimalizing of overconsumption, which is the biggest problem we are facing today. That is too much of everything. So I think that we have to look at UBI as a total cure for the whole world, for all, not as expensive. It's an investment in future life for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Dear friends, I will pause the recording now, and we will give a 10 minutes break. Okay, Barb, the word is yours.
Yeah, just a quick, something quick, which is just to say that here in the UK, we were kind of bounced into the emergency basic income idea because other people kind of put the petitions up, not our organizations, but we thought it would be really silly not to support it. What we have said to MPs is that we think that the emergency basic income should be quite a bit higher than the ongoing basic incomes that have been proposed. The other thing is just to say that, yeah, I really would appreciate that people who haven't spoken before be kind of given precedence in speaking, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Barb. I'm trying to allocate time for everybody. We will continue with Sarat. Dear Sarat, where is your Okay. But why it doesn't? Okay, Sarah, the word is yours.
Okay, Ali, thank you very much for this initiative. And it's so wonderful to see 70 plus, and then maybe after the interval, I think we have fewer. It's really like a mini Congress here. I'm really, really happy and inspired to see so many faces that I know. I'm here not as a BN representative, but as my individual self, and also on behalf of Indian Network for Basic Income. Quickly about the Indian situation, it's a total mess. Now, COVID he's in its place. COVID is moving very slowly in India, but I think the lockdown has resulted in very serious consequences for the workers. It's not just the daily wage workers, but it's this huge number of migrant workers who are stranded in the states that they are working in. Some try to walk back. So it's a huge humanitarian disaster. Okay, now we started in India, the INBI started by writing to the Prime Minister and the government about an emergency basic income. And then said that this is how it should be done. We also gave very clear suggestions about how the delivery should take place. Now, even before we could discuss with the governments, the tragedy has started, enveloping all of us, and all of us are now, we are busy in completely involved in the relief work in my own city, there are 170 shelters. That the estimate is that we have 1 million migrant workers who have not been able to go back. So all of them, so there are issues of keeping them in a shelter, government is not able to handle, NGOs as civil society, we are trying to intervene there and trying to provide food and medicines and all kinds of things. So I even forgotten that I am an advocate of universal basic income. So we are in that kind of a quagmire. Now, that's the Indian situation, and we are addressing immediately what I think even some of you have referred to. The corona is moving slowly, but what the lockdown, 21 days lockdown has unleashed is something that I have never come across, and what it is doing to the lives of millions of people. Now, I'm not a marketing man as a UBI advocate to find every opportunity to push my product. Okay. Now, that is not the point. The point is not about how to push UBI during this time of crisis. No, UBI, to my mind, is a path of freedom. And it is addressing certain issues in our society. It's addressing the questions of deprivation. It's addressing the question of inequality. It's addressing the question of unfreedom. Now, what is happening in this crisis with the lockdown there is that it's a lab situation that the underbelly is completely coming out. You can clearly see all the vulnerabilities of our society. What is actually, we have been screaming from the rooftops, saying that this is not okay, that's not okay, but here it is in front of everybody's eyes. All the vulnerabilities are out there for everybody to see. Okay, now for the UBI movement, I think it's a very good opportunity to highlight and articulate the questions of the precariat. The issues of the precariat. What exactly is wrong with our society? Look at our vulnerabilities are all out in the open. Can you see them now? Okay, this is the reason why we have been screaming about universal basic income. Okay, I will not go on and on that issue. That's exactly what we are trying to do now, articulate now, not asking for a pure universal basic income. But this is an opportunity for the BI community, basic income community, to come together and converse more, to come together and talk more, share more. Because, for example, I'll just give one important difference between Europe and India or any other country. Here, the poorer countries, the documentation is very poor. Okay, when you make something a policy, okay, it's not so difficult to implement. The difficulty is only taking a policy decision. Whereas even if we take a policy decision here, the delivery itself is a very big problem, because all the vulnerable people, the people are not documented well. So we are running into huge issues on that matter. Okay, so because that actually makes the point that we need a solidarity space in the basic income movement. We need to come together more during this period to share our ideas and to help each other and to refine our own concepts, refine our own thinking about universal basic income and what we have always stood for and what we will stand for. So that is one important issue, and I strongly support what Hilda has said, that we should reach out to the opinion makers to talk about this issue, to talk about not necessarily universal basic income, but to talk about precariat. Now, the last point I would like to make is what Paul has already said, that this is the time we should make the corporate world become more responsible to the society. I think this is an opportunity to really bring home the point about how the digital dividends or the blue commons, all the commons, and talk about them and say how it belongs to the entire society. I think these are the opportunities that I see. We have created a small group of volunteers. We have created a website called Emergency Basic Income. Please, all of you go there. We are trying to create a solidarity cafe there where anybody can walk in and interact with other people there. We are trying to create some kind of a system by which one can do that. I think I'm really, really happy to see so many people here. And I think let's continue to meet more often, one-to-one or as a group. Thank you so much.
Dear Sarat, thank you very much. Very compact and very important messages. We will continue with Vikas. Dear Vikas, last time we couldn't manage, but maybe this time. Okay, now we have your. Okay, Vikas, what is yours?
Thank you so much for having me here. I belong to the same city that Sarat, Dr. Sarat is, and he has probably spoken most of the challenges that we are facing in this country. I have only two limited points to make. I think, as Sarat was rightly saying, this is a good opportunity for us to go and talk to the government. I think the government is willing to listen because of the challenges that is perceived even by them of the people who are really suffering. Just to give you a number, close to about 30% of Indians, which will translate into close to about 300 million people, are going to be hungry and deprived if something seriously is not done in this country. The government will be willing to hear us. However, I disagree with Sarat in the sense that we need to be marketing agents of UBI, because we've been trying to talk about UBI for the last so many years. The concept is welcome in everybody's mind, but somehow the push has, somehow this needs to be pushed really into the space of the common people. People realize that unless and until there is some sort of support for the people who are deprived and suffering, we are going to have a society which is unequal and which is likely to be unequal for a long, long time. So there is some element of acceptance to the idea. However, this needs to be pushed further. The stakeholders, and in my view, there are two key stakeholders. One is the government, the policymakers, the politicians. They would like to implement it because it's going to be a big vote winner. However, our approach should be to make it seem as if it's their idea. And once we are able to do that, we should be able to succeed. The other point that I wanted to make was maybe we will not be able to do anything until the next 15, 20 days because of the lockdown. We'll not be able to communicate, but we must open a front where we should be able to communicate more often to the stakeholders, particularly the government, and bring this concept into a reality. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you for your contributions. So, Peter, Peter, I saw your hands. Okay, Peter, word is yours.
Thank you very much, Ali. Hope you can hear me. I was to present a paper on optimal funding of the basic, of a world basic income in Brisbane. A letter regarding my finding has been forwarded to the Social Development Minister here in New Zealand for her reply. I'm going to give you a quick summary of the letter I've given to Ali to share with you guys. I built the myubi.co.nz website and released it in New Zealand 3 to 4 years ago. This compares 4 different UBI funding models for any person's personal financial circumstances. I analysed the results, and the best of them had 94% of people better off with the UBI, a cut in income tax financed by an increased GST or VAT rate. These results were mirrored in the calculations for the European dividend, where a 10% increase in VAT rates finances a UBI for every nation in the Union. This is with most of the income tax wiped out there as well. May be different now that we've had this financial collapse, but given a normal economy, this is where it sits. In India, income and corporate tax rates would need to treble to fund the same UBI that a 30% GST rate could afford. Governments can use my Indian model to calculate their required GST rate. A simple comparison of GDP per capita will give governments a fair indication of what measures would be necessary. My suggestions to the Minister was initially continue printing money, but deliver this directly into every citizen's bank account. Every nation raises GST or VAT rates to fund a UBI. This offers a net benefit to more than 90% of the people. We collectively raise carbon tax and therefore fuel prices 17%, as originally forwarded by the Republican Congress to President Trump, delivering 90% of the proceeds equally to every citizen in our own nations. The residual 10% of global carbon tax creates a people's controlled Earth's Environment Fund. I've got the details of how that works. Remove all lower income tax brackets. This is after the emergency, but we could look at it now because the people who are working are emergency health and crucial workers. So they get the UBI and they'd keep their income tax from their wages. They need support. They're the ones out there doing the work. In Africa, so this is what's needed worldwide. In Africa, there are 8 countries with lower GDP per capita than India. And with GST included in some of these nations' food and a higher food cost in India, these nations would definitely struggle to afford a meaningful UBI. A few other African countries would struggle because they already have sizable GST rates, higher living costs, and only marginal better GDP per capita. There are possibly a few other countries in the Pacific that require assistance. Bangladesh and Pakistan. I think Pakistan will be able to do it. Bangladesh, I think, is going to struggle. They've got a 25% less GDP. There's already GST on food in Bangladesh. I think it will probably struggle and need support. Now, here's the point I'm trying to emphasize. If the people of the US, China, and the EU offered 1% of their basic income, then every person and every nation can afford a basic income as a right. I think if we gave people a chance to vote now, I think they'd agree that this is the right thing for us to do as a world, as a species. If the results from the Indian and Kenya pilots prove normal, then the troubled countries of Africa will quickly grow an internal economy sufficient to finance their citizens' UBI without international support. So that's the crux of it. I'm looking for support. I want this thing shared around the place. Thanks for hearing me.
Thank you, Peter. Regarding the proposals and the support requests, we try to formulate something, and I will mention it while my turn is there. But we will continue with Peter too.
That was me.
No, you are
That
Peter.
was me.
No, there's also Peter too.
Yeah, me.
It was again you?
Yes. For the
okay.
computer, I had to load them to get into the computer so I could read the comments.
Okay.
No video.
So, Shihobano, are you here? Shihobano, SH. Okay. Shihobano, word is yours.
Yeah, Shobna Nilasko. I'm from India. Hello. Hello. Nice to be a part of this discussion. I'm a development economist and an advocate of UBI. Unfortunately, as all of you know, and many of you spoken about, that it's difficult to implement universal basic income, maybe the conditional basic income, as I have submitted my paper in the UBI website. So the conditional basic income is the only thing that is practically applicable for India. And actually, especially during this time of COVID crisis, we have been writing here and there about this basic income, but our leaders always think that sharing the income is just like giving free income. They could not understand it is just returning the money collected from the people. So that understanding has to come. And of course, now they have given a small amount of income to the poor people, 1,000 rupees. That is $13 per poor person. So as all of you know, we have complex problems. We have migrant laborers, nearly 30%. And we have extreme poor people and also jobless, homeless. We have many crises. And in this time of corona crisis, the political leaders needs to give special awareness over this issue. Unfortunately, they could not understand what type of awareness, especially like the incubation period, they are not able to give clear understanding to the public. So they are just casually going to market, and there is always crowd everywhere. And this lighting and clapping, which was announced in a public, as a public program, would have spread more of this pandemic. Because as just like USA was believing that it's not a serious issue for the country, we are also believing, most of the Indians believe that it's not an issue for the country. So maybe if it is a miracle or the God saving, maybe due to the immunity power or something like that, yeah, unless and otherwise we are saved. As many of you have pointed out, it will be a very serious crisis having the maximum population. And of course, what can be done is mainly these sort of transparent discussion should be conducted by the international organizations in the public over the online media, so that people like voices of people like ours, like Sharath and others, we can speak out whatever is happening. As many of you might be knowing, India ranks 140th in the press freedom. And so maybe public discussions may help. As I have quoted in my chat also, as we have realized, the virus in one place as a pandemic to everywhere, the same way here also the poverty in one part of the world is a threat for the whole world. And so because the transparency and the accountability is very weak in our country, leaders and many of us. So it is, and the religious politics and other politics, these are all some of the threats. And so in this time of crisis, transparent discussions and the methodology that has to be adopted has to be guided by the international institutions. So international institutions has to guide in this regard. And conditional basic income should be, once the other countries are mandating it, it will become a part of mandatory for our country also. So that in my paper, as I have justified, the amount that is going in the form of leakage of different policy expenditures are so much unwanted. If it is distributed in the form of basic income, it will directly reach the people. And so basic income could be the main solution in this crisis time. And of course, all of us have come together very late, because it started in 19 and we are very late. And slowly, that's how US also thought, and now India is also thinking the way. So it's mandatory that WHO and United Nations guide the countries which are having maximum population. As many of you have spoken about the threat that India is posing to the world. So the same way, I'm also emphasizing that, and this basic income cannot be implemented unless and otherwise it is mandated by the international agencies. So some of you were sharing about your country experiences, which are not applicable for our country. So these are few thoughts I'd like to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Shabano. Thank you. Okay, we will continue with Carl. Carl,
yes.
Word is yours. Please.
Yes. While we were sitting here, I was contacted by a news service that focuses on Spanish-speaking countries in the Americas. If anybody here is from a Spanish-speaking country in the Americas, please send me an email and I'll see if you'd like to, they'd like to get in touch with you. My email is carl@whiterquist.com. Okay, next person.
Thank you, Carl. Olaf, dear Olaf, word is yours.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me, please?
Yes,
do you all hear me?
Yes, we do.
Thank you very much. While I fully understand Malcolm Torrey's point from earlier, that it's quite difficult to get a paper that is formally and officially agreed on by the Basic Income Earth Network, I really earnestly would like to ask the executive committee to find ways to gain more popularity on the idea of basic income in especially these times. I think there are two main topics that we do need to get across. The first one is, of course, what Carl said earlier, that we shall not allow programs that are now in the emergency erected for other purposes to be called UBI if they are not unconditional and not for everyone. So this is very important, I think, in the discussion, because everything that was said is right. Many people are now calling UBI what is in fact not an UBI, and we have to try and raise the awareness for that. But there's a second main topic I think we also do need to get across. That's why is the UBI the right decision to be implemented in the recovery after the pandemic crisis? And as much as I understand that we cannot come up with one official paper, but I think we have so many distinguished speakers heard here in this discussions, and we do know that these are also very distinguished writers. So I would like to ask whether it's possible to, on the website, allocate texts on both these main topics that I mentioned, so that we can draw our talking points in our various countries from there and get across what we like to contribute to the worldwide discussion now. So I think it might be useful to use this webpage to allocate several texts, several articles, several opinions from all our different points of view, and then very much enable our members of the BN network to go into the out into the public and also encourage them to use BN as a name. So let's say a name dropping, so that the awareness is rising in the normal public audience that indeed UBI is a worldwide movement, which is agreed on worldwidely. And I think that this special occasion gives us the opportunity to show that we are already here and we are already discussing some things that are possible to show the way for the world to develop after these crises. So I think that would be wise to do so, and maybe that's the way out of the trick that we cannot have an assembly this year and have to wait a year and a half to agree on a certain topic.
Thank you, Olaf. Thank you very much. Okay. And now we will continue with Michelle. Michelle, I'm unmuting you. Word is yours, Michelle.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. So thank you very much for having me here. It's a great joy to meet you. This is Michele from UBI Italy. I got interested into the basic income like some 10 years ago when I heard about a book about technological unemployment, and since then I mostly gave my effort into translating some TEDx talks about basic income, and it's a particular joy to meet Jim, Carl, Hilde, and other people I personally worked on. So if you're happy with that, I'd like to make a short recap of what is happening in Italy right now. Because the situation is particularly interesting. Italy, as you are certainly aware of that, is one of the first countries who was hit the hardest by the pandemic. Now the emergency is slowly going back to normal, but now that the medical crisis now that we are slowly getting over the medical crisis, the social one is taking place of it, because a lot of people has remained with no income. And they are getting, as you can imagine, very angry, and they already got into the stage of threatening public structure like stores and other things. As you can imagine, this has made this has spiked the interest of the politicians into the theme of the basic income. Because we have had in Italy a decades-old stubborn resistance of politicians of providing all people an income, but now they are much more in favor of it because basically they see no alternatives. And right now, in this moment, we had another measure that is formally called citizens' income, which was endorsed by the 5 Stars movement. But in fact, if you carefully look at the details of it, is more a minimum guaranteed income scheme, which is also conditioned to work. The good news is that now, because of the pandemic, a lot of politicians are considering to extend the concept of this conditioned income to a truly universal unconditioned one. The real challenge that we are as a people is another one instead. In Italy, more than having one basic income movement, we have several different ones. We have a feminist basic income movement, which focus their interest on the distinction between work and activity, because women do a lot of activity that are not paid for and accounted for as work. There is a monetarist stream that is that says we owe a basic, they owe to give us a basic income because we create the value of the money and the stuff we use and so on. There are several different ones, and so far they have failed to add up to make a consistent, intense political pressure. So the effort we would like to be right now is basically to speak to the different components of the basic income movement and couple them together in order to make that final nudge, that final pressure that finally puts the basic income in place. This is taking, we are working on that in these very weeks, and hopefully if another virtual meeting will take place soon, I will update you on that. And that's about it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Michel. Dear friends, according to my list, I will be talking now. But my contribution will be in two parts. One part is a summary of the previous parts, and the other part is regarding Turkey. The thing is, there are many valuable ideas. It will not be possible to vote for them, whether to accept it or not. Maybe the most appropriate way should be, okay, each idea can continue and people can come together around this idea. For example, the letter to the spiritual leaders and the letter to the UN. So Hilde can continue, and maybe Diana, Paul, and Malcolm, and me also, we would like to contribute her. Or if you would like to contribute, support Hilde, we can support her. So we shouldn't maybe say, okay, this is a good idea, this is a bad idea. We should support it, every idea, and who are volunteer to support it, maybe can support her. Also the march on September. Alexander said that we should put more efforts to have more march at many different locations, so we can also support him. And regarding the comparison of the countries, Julio said about this, and I also shared in the chat room about a comparison table. So this can also continue. So we can continue with the letter, we can continue with the march, we can continue with the comparison table. Also, there are other ideas. I mean, people can come together and try to realize these proposals. Secondly, Sarat mentioned about solidarity. In fact, many of you mentioned about solidarity, but to have the solidarity, we need tools. So we need communication, interaction, and collaboration tools. So in fact, this is one of it. And our idea is, I mean, our proposal is, I talked to Hilde because it started like this. Why not to have these sessions once a week during April? I mean, so 4 more meetings in April, so that we can be, maybe these days are the important days that we should be in communication. And also we would like to have a survey. The survey may also help to structure a comparison table between different countries, what they are doing about basic income. Is it a real basic income, or what kind of basic income? What are the amounts? What's the target population, and what's the target category in the society, etc. So a survey may be introduced. An email group may be introduced. A record book, maybe you heard about this. We were trying to develop a kind of UBI Advocacy record book. The first version was released a month ago. Maybe we can increase the number of UBI advocates within this report. These were summary of the previous things. What I mean is, we better not vote for any idea, but we better come together the ideas. At this stage, I would like to mention 2 things regarding Olaf's contributions. One is, if you do kindly write a 1 paragraph of your contribution and share with us, we can put them next to each other and we can share with third parties. 1 paragraph, or maybe with the title. For example, Carl mentioned that we should criticize all the existing or all the proposals on the table. I mean, whatever the content, but it might be very valuable to receive one paragraph. And lastly, okay, when it comes to Turkey, it's a difficult situation. In Turkey, the politicians are not using the terminology universal basic income yet. We are trying to introduce this to the society by different means, mostly social media. But these days, because of the corona issue, many people lost their jobs, so they are jobless. They are also incomeless, and if they do not have any money in the bank, so this means that they are in big trouble. In fact, this population, this group of people are a big number, I mean, big population. So some opposition parties are raising some figures to be distributed to the society, but they don't mention very clearly to whom and for how long, for 1 month, 2 months, or for a lifetime. I mean, it's not very clear. So what we are trying to do in Turkey is we had 15 questions. We are trying to make a survey all around the country, and we are trying to make people agree on the principles first. Then we can discuss about the amount. So we are not talking anything about amount, and we say, or we consider talking about the amount of money is in fact sabotage of the concept. We should first put the principles on the table, and we should agree on the principles. And lastly, I would like to say in Turkey, there are some kind of gesture models. I mean, when I say gesture models, I mean, they are not legal, right? But some people help you in some ways, sometimes ethical, sometimes unethical, sometimes legal, sometimes illegal. I mean, it's a different issue. But there are some gesture models. We also mention very clearly that it should be a constitutional right, and we can change the constitution very quickly if all the parties can come together. And this corona issue maybe will create such an environment, or may lead to such an environment. So, one last thing I would like to mention. This is very important, I guess. My brother is living in New Jersey, and he's a risk guy with a PhD, and he's doing consultancy regarding risk, liability, and stochastics. And right now, with a large team, they are studying on the effects of the coronavirus. What I would like to say is I can share their findings. In fact, it was just launched today. This Oliver Wyman is the name of the company. The thing is that the emergency conditions maybe the normal conditions, or at least defining the normal conditions of the coming near future. So when we talk about emergency basic income, maybe it will be the basic income of the coming near future. I mean, it's not a separate issue. I mean, so only for 2 months. It's not like a forest fire. It is something totally changing the game. I will share this also. I'm sorry that I talked too much. I will continue with Paul. Paul, word is yours.
I'd like Jesse to talk before me, if that's okay.
Who?
Jesse.
Okay. Jesse.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Sorry I was late. I got the time difference mixed up. But no, I just wanted to share what's happening in Canada and what the state of our country is right now. We basically, most of the provinces have everything under complete lockdown. So all what are deemed non-essential services, bars, cafes, restaurants, anything, gift shops, anything are closed. So millions of people are out of work right now. Pretty much the only things that are open are pharmacies and grocery stores and anything that's essential. So millions of people have applied for employment insurance. And then that caused a petition to be circulated that was signed by over 30,000 people calling for an emergency basic income. So we're hoping that having this call for an emergency basic income could be the impetus to bringing in a full basic income. So we've been doing a lot of discussions around that, and in all the mainstream media have been a lot of talks. Like, in fact, Vice just released an article that I was on today about calling for a basic income. So then the government of Canada announced what's called the Canada Economic Relief Benefit, which can provide up to $2,000 a month for every Canadian whose work has been displaced due to COVID-19. Unfortunately, this does mean that about 800,000 people fall through the cracks. People who have had multiple jobs, so they may have been laid off from one job, but another one of their jobs is deemed as an essential service. So their income is slashed very, very, very significantly, but they still don't qualify to receive this Canada Relief Benefit. Or people, myself included, I got laid off from my job a month before the pandemic happened. I would have had a job right now had the pandemic not happened, but that doesn't mean I qualify for the relief benefit. So I'm not getting any money from that. So there's about a lot of people in this situation very similar to myself, and overall the relief benefit and how to access it has just been very, very confusing. All of the websites are very tied up, phone lines are down, and I understand the government is very, very overrun with everything that's happening and trying to respond in the best way they can. And to my estimation, they're doing a very, very good job, but it is very confusing. And in light of that, just the official leader of the opposition party in Canada just released an open letter to our Prime Minister today calling for a full-scale basic income to be distributed to every single Canadian, because this relief benefit doesn't do that properly. And we're working with the opposition to continue to call on a basic income and to continue to call on a universal basic income for every Canadian that's permanent and full and established. I'm not sure how that would look, because in the past with the Ontario pilot, the federal government's response has always been basic income is a provincial program and not a federal program. But the employment insurance in our country is a federal program. So there's discrepancy and there's ways to argue around it. And I think we're all just trying to figure that out. But in the meantime, it's become an incredibly popular topic and a hot topic in Canada. I started another portrait series from the confines of my home for those people who are affected by not getting the relief benefit. I call it CRB won't help me. Canada Relief Benefit won't help me. It's a hashtag that we have trending on Twitter right now, and people are sending me photos similar to my Humans of Basic Income portrait series, where they're holding signs saying why this economic relief won't help them. And we want to gain momentum with that, make it go viral, get a lot of media attention, and then gain government attention so we can continue to pressure the government to extend this relief benefit to every single Canadian out there. I love the idea of an open letter, especially like calling on agencies such as the UN, and the idea for like collaborating in working groups and continuing to communicate, especially now that the annual Congress isn't happening. And there's also a personal disappointment. I was planning on going to the Congress and exhibiting a portrait series where I would have taken pictures of basic income recipients from all over the world and highlighted the different types of basic income and how basic income has benefited people in a myriad of different countries. I was very excited for this project and disappointed that's not happening, but hopeful that when this is all over, we will see each other again in person. So I'm just excited to be here and excited to help. I think that's all I have to add for now, unless you have anything else, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Paul, can we continue with you?
I'll be really brief. The case was made for a conditional basic income previously, and I'd just like to say how strongly against that I am. End of. It should be universal.
Whoa. So is there any other contributions? Robin, would you like to? Robin?
Hello, everybody.
Yes.
Nice to see Yes?
Yes,
Can I
please.
be heard? Nice to see so many people from all over the world on the Zoom manifestation like today. And I'm happy to hear some people saying what I think. It's White agrees. He says a basic income there has to be a basic income and not something else. So, and they're all in all kinds of countries there are petitions going in for some basic income, between quotes, what is only for entrepreneurs, or it is for people without money, or it is when you have only 20% less income from your shop. And that is not a basic income. This is just a crisis corona income. And we should not call that basic income. And a lot of people say, just keep, when it is a duck, call it a duck. So when it is basic income, call it basic income. When it is not, call it something else. That's my opinion. And I've put a link in the chat for a list of petitions which you can sign. And it's all about helicopter money, of course, or all kinds of things, but there are not really a good petition going on. We have in Europe, we should have been busy right now with a second ECI. In 2013, we had an ECI, and the European Citizens Initiative. We had to have 1 million signatures for the European Parliament to talk about the basic income proposition, but we only had 300,000, so it wasn't good enough to put it in the Parliament. Now we started another petition. It should have been started in May, but it is still not accepted by the EU Commission for the ECI, because we have now submitted it for the third time, and we have to wait for an answer. So I don't think it's going to be this year for the new ECI. I think it's going to be 2021, I think. The good idea of the marches in September is also a good thing. It's a part of the Basic Income Week. I don't know if everybody knows about the Basic Income Week. There's a website, basicincomeweek.org. It's about the 13th time that it's being organized. It started in Germany, and now it's all over the world. And we have a little team combining all the actions and putting them on the website. So if you have actions, start them in the Basic Income Week, and as a ultimate end of the week, it's the Saturday, you can all go to the marches. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Sarat, what is yours?
Yeah, I just want to add a small point that it's very interesting to hear our friends from different countries talking about what exactly the local proposals are. I think this global idea, I think when it actually gets implemented, it operationalized, it's always a local narrative. It's always a local discussion. It's a very, each country has its own discussion, its own narrative, and then universal basic income gets stitched into that narrative. And I think it's very important that within that narrative, we find our space to articulate universal basic income. I completely agree with friends who are saying that we should call a spade a spade. We should call an orange and apple an apple. When something is not a universal basic income, I think we should have a healthy writing about saying that this is not a universal basic income, but this is a union, this is somebody, as a people's organization, which is pushing. It could be relief work right now. So you cannot call that a universal basic income, because this is just relief work for a disaster. It's part of a disaster management. So keeping these things in mind, I think we should still push the local narrative, what is locally possible. At the same time, looking at the short-term interests, we also have to be aware of, and the criticism about whether something is really a UBI or not is welcome. I think it should be part of our larger basic income discussion. So, but I think at the same time, we should not lose track of the local discussion. What is it that, like, I think Shobhana has made a very good point that in India, if you talk universal with 1.4 billion people, I think the conversation actually is a non-starter. But at the same time, doesn't mean that we invoke that. But at the same time, there are smaller discussions happening where we get stitched into. So I think it's not an easy answer. But at the moment, we are all talking about COVID. So in COVID, we should only talk about relief work, not universal basic income.
Thank you,
or at least
Sarat.
not call it a universal basic income.
Thank you. Carl?
Yes. I just when in response to what Paul was saying about conditions, the thing that most defines basic income is its unconditionality. You add conditions, it's not a conditional basic income, it's just not basic income. Whereas if it's temporary, if it's an emergency basic income, you can see how that's a form of basic income. And even if it's means tested, it's an awful lot closer than if it's conditional to basic income. It's a little difficult to be careful about, well, which steps in the direction of basic income are more important. If you're making it wider to how it's available, and if you're making it the conditions easier to meet, then you are going in that direction. But as long as it's got conditions attached, it's not basic income. I'm done.
Carl, thank you very much. Antonis? Antonis, word is yours.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I just thought that it would be a good idea to restate my previous comment. First of all, I agree with everyone saying that we should call things as they are. Call it helicopter money if it's a donation to, it's a grant to all. Call it unconditional only if it's unconditional. That's super important to clarify in any way possible. The point that I made before, and I wanted to restate it now, is where the grants or the welfare approaches to relief funds or whatever are not unconditional. The problem is that when people are facing several difficulties, stressed, and even more stress on top of the existing social conditions. When people become stressed, they become angry, and people become angry. If your neighbor, like I said before, gets that kind of relief fund because they fall under the, and you're already facing hardness in your life, then if a critical mass of people not receive.
Antonis, unfortunately, we cannot. Hello, Antonis.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we couldn't follow you. The line was broken several times. We couldn't follow your sentences. Maybe you can start from the beginning. Okay. Maybe.
Can you hear me clear now? Can you hear me?
Yes, please continue.
Okay, yeah. So in short, the point I was making was that if the social unrest, if your neighbor gets something because they fall under the conditions and you don't get it because you fall under the cracks, then if a critical mass of people not receiving it will be formed, then it's very easier to imagine that social unrest will go on, especially given how stress point that can help convince governments both of implementing unconditional measures instead of conditional. And yeah. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Antonis, unfortunately, we couldn't follow you. If you like, you can leave the chat room and re-enter, and then you can continue, you can say your words once again. Maybe something is wrong with your line. Paul, do you have anything to add? Paul, did you?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, let me go over the list who didn't contribute. Eva Maria. Eva Maria.
Yes, I am here.
Okay.
Hello to everyone. I just listen all the time, and I see that many things are the same in our place than all over the world. And we started some opposition politician. They started with some. They said UBI, but this wasn't. This is just an emergency money for the next 3 months, and even to put up with until an amount money and not a full UBI. So I think is, but everybody says so, and we just think that, yeah, you can't say too much because this is also better than nothing. But this is only one particular place in Budapest, so not all over the country. And from the government, we get no hope and no help, and not in the pension and not for the persons, but they try to support some companies, and but this is not a fair game, I must tell you, because the money is there, but they don't want to give it out. So shortly, I would like to say only this, and I listen more what you have in all over the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eva Maria. In the meantime, we would like to thank Antonis. He had a problem with his connection, but he has his connections in the chat box. By the way, dear friends, you know, when you go down the stream, at the bottom part of the stream, there's a chat button. If you click it, you open the chat box, and on the right bottom of the chat box, there are 3 dots. If you click on it, you can save the chat. So you can have all the written documentation in your laptop in case you need in the future. So who else would like to, let me continue. Anya, okay. Diana, okay. Valeria, okay. Gailin Middleton, okay. Gardur, okay. Hilda, okay. Ilhami, would you like to add something? Are you there? Ilhami? His line is not good. Okay, who else didn't contribute? Carl, Halit Mohammed, Khalid. Okay, it's near Jesse. Paul, would you like to? Dear Paul from Austria.
I'm fine and just listening.
Now, would you like to say anything?
Oh, thank you. Not at the moment.
Okay. What about Luke? Luke, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, well, maybe.
Please.
Just that well, I'm from Quebec, the Francophone province of Canada. I wouldn't, I couldn't have anything special about on top of what my colleagues from Canada said, except that that something that has not been discussed. I don't know if it's the case in your part of the world, but this Canada is a federation, and so things will have to start from the provinces, and then there will be deals to be made between the 2 levels of government. I don't know if it's the case somewhere else in the world, but I would be interested in knowing about that, because it might change. It's a special situation, in that for that matter. So there's something there was something about that, I guess, that going on in Ontario, and an experiment that was done there. It was a provincial initiative, and there's something that might island, a little province of Canada, things have to start from the province in many ways. It might be the same thing in other countries, I don't know. Well, that's the only thing that I could add. Otherwise, the situation in Canada was well described by my colleagues.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you very much. Sabine, would you like to contribute? Sabine? Okay. What about Sebastian? Sebastian, are you there? No. Or okay, Shinjejana Stefanik Hoffel. Okay, I cannot unmute. Dear friends, almost everybody contributed. At the beginning, we were about, I guess, 3 pages, which means about 70, 75 UBI advocates from different countries. I think it was an interesting recording. I will re-listen it because I couldn't follow all of you because I was in the meantime trying to give answers from the chat box. But very interesting ideas, very interesting proposals are mentioned. My proposition is, why don't you prepare a single paragraph regarding your propositions and also your contributions and share it, and then very quickly people can come together around these ideas. For example, Hildes is very clear, the letter issue. Diana, Paul, me, and Malcolm also. Maybe this may be bigger, of course. I mean, please send a single paragraph so that people can gather around these ideas and try to produce something, or we can have a progress. In the meantime, Peter would like to speak. Peter? Yes, Peter? Okay, I should open the other Peter. Okay. Peter?
Thanks, Ali. Yeah.
Okay.
So to contribute the paragraph through the chat box.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that what you do?
It is also it's a possibility, or if you like, you can send by email. Then we can collect them. Let's say in one day, if you send it, we can distribute it as like a minutes of this meeting.
Okay, so look, to my mind, thank you very much for everybody being here and contributing. We have a world problem. We have a problem, and everybody has become very aware of it and very quick. We have a unique situation where we can actually push forward with a world UBI. Now, we're not likely in our lifetime to come to the time that we are here now. And we have an opportunity to change the way that the world works. To me, we've got deprivation and poverty. We've got people that don't have what they need, and we can change that. And to me, the idea of being able to do it as a world is to me where we is the possibility that we've been offered now. That's the best that we can do in this moment, is do what's right for everybody on the planet. Now, I know I'm a little bit out by myself. Paul has got some interesting ideas on how to finance this and how to support it. To me, that's the purpose of being. It is why we're here. You know, we talk about what's happening in our own countries, but at the end, we're here because of the moral understanding of what this is about. It's about a basic income, universal for everyone. And this is the situation that we have. We have a world pandemic. We have the world that's concentrating on, gosh, we really have a need. Now, the idea of being able to share our own basic income, 1% of it, to support the nations that don't have enough to be able to implement their own UBI. To me, that's an idea that can be taken on now because of just where we are as a planet, as a species. The idea of a carbon tax, being able to redistribute the money from a carbon tax to be able to support the lower end of our people and the environment itself. These to me is a common theme. The financing of it, the Andrew Yang's financing is a VAT financing. The other letter that went through your site today was a VAT funding. The European social dividend is a VAT funding. I'm not sure if this is the thing that people struggle with, but I'm a bit surprised, to be honest, how this evening's run. And look, if there's a group of people that are interested in supporting the idea, to me, getting letters to the ministers that are dealing with this is the thing to do. I'm not talking about putting it out to every minister and every political party. The people that are involved with sorting this out are the people that need to be able to hear the ideas. And a world basic income to me is, well, it's where I want to put my energy. If there's anybody else interested in that, then I'd certainly like to be part of a group that does that. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Paul, are you still in the line? Would you like to say anything? Paul, yes, after Peter. Okay, William would like to say something. I saw his hand.
Yeah.
Okay, William, please.
Good evening to all of you. We hear a lot of good ideas. All the proposals were made ask for visibility, I think. We have to show everybody that we are dealing with a great idea. We have to put it on the street and let the people know that we are in for the UBI concept. We have to communicate it on the streets, not only in the parliament or in the newspapers, also, of course, but we have to go into the street. That would be my destiny for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Willem. Anybody would like to contribute more? Okay. Can I summarize like this? Do you think it's acceptable to have another chat in 1 week? I mean, next Tuesday, same time, and to receive contributions as one paragraph within 1 day, and collect them in one email and send to all. Then you can all study them. And if you like to join to one of the ideas, you can come together and spend effort there. Or maybe nobody's saying anything. I'm unmuting you all. Okay, we are all unmuted. Now we are about 30 people. What you say first about having the next meeting on next Tuesday? Is it acceptable?
That's an excellent idea. Maybe we should implement some sort of workflow, sort of application, so we can like assign people to different projects and outline exactly what we want to do. We want to have a letter. We want to have these different initiatives and actions, and then people can join those work groups as they see fit.
Thank you, Jesse. Paul?
Okay. I don't mind being part of a work group to draft this letter I'm pretty sure Hilda would like to be part of it as well, and Peter. Let's do it.
Yeah.
If anyone else wants to join, let's just do it.
I would like to contribute to that project. It's very interesting. Also, Diana is back.
Yes.
Welcome, Diana.
Thank you.
And second issue is it possible for all of you, if you can prepare a single paragraph about a summary of what you said? I mean, for example, Gerdur, very compact contributions. Gerdur, can you please send a single paragraph? I mean, all of you, so that we can put them in one email and send to everybody. I have some notes, but it's quite difficult.
Ali, do you want us to send that to you?
If I can consolidate them and send again in the same way.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking, concerning the letter, I really would like to be on the sideline and see it, and then that comes up with ideas at the same time.
Okay.
So, I don't know if I have any input, but I really would like to see it and kind of contribute if I think so, because I think I see UBI or basic income Earth network. I've always seen it as an Earth network, and I worked in Bangladesh. I've been working in these countries, and I think the Earth is so small, and we have to do this a universal salvation for the world. It is. The world can piss us off, it's no problem. We have to hang on, we have to save us.
Thank you. I would like to say one more thing. To speed up the process, can we say the deadline for this one paragraph is tomorrow, GMT 14:30? Okay, so we have, less than 1 day, but almost 1 day.
That line is only that is just for us what we have to say, but there's nothing for the letter or anything.
Yeah, but letter is also a kind of proposal, so that people would like to contribute, and maybe it will be much healthy, much strong letter. Maybe.
But one thing that we did not mention at all, or I missed it, that the thing is that we have to change warfare into welfare. There is so much money that we spend more, that we can, there is enough money for the whole world, to feed the whole world, that the military uses in 8 days a year, and that is something, it is easy. It is really easy to make basic income for the whole world if we just run the money differently.
Okay, that's great. Alexander, you are here, I guess.
Yeah.
Dear Alexander, maybe I think you are the most senior UBI advocate in this chat room. Maybe you would like to say the last words, and then we can conclude today's session.
Yes, well, it was a very inspiring session. And it's great to see so many people in so many countries being active for UBI. And that is now, UBI is now known to so many people. I mean, we have been struggling so long time to get the name recognition, but now more and more people know what UBI means. And I think it's very important to write a letter to the big leaders in charge, to write to our own governments and to our parliamentarians. But it's also very important that we are visible. We are visible in the streets to normal, average people. That's why I appeal that if you can join and make the 19th of September a very big event that all the global media will pick up, that basic income is there to stay, and that the leaders have to listen to what the people want. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. We are also waiting as a written paragraph of your contribution.
Okay.
Ali, before we close, let's have one big shout. We want UBI.
We want UBI.
We want UBI.
Okay. UBI. Exactly.
Yes. Okay. I'll say we want. I'll say we want. You all say UBI. We want.
UBI.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Great, Ali. Thank you so
Remember the
much.
password.
Bye, everybody. All the best.
You remember the
Bye.
password. You remember the password for entering this session. UBI for humanity. UBI
Yes.
humanity.
Wow.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you,
Ciao,
Ali.
ciao.
Thank you, Ali. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Hope to see you next Tuesday, same time.
Next Tuesday, same time. Looking forward to it.
One
Bye.
last thing. Would you please also convey the invitation messages to the other UBI advocates? Because we had a difficulty because BN has the mailing list, but the executive committee couldn't make a decision to convey these because of, how I can say, it's because it's a database and I mean, because of some technical or bureaucratic issues, whatever. I mean, we couldn't reach to everybody. If you know other people who are UBI advocates, senior advocates especially, please also convey the invitation message to them too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
It will be available on YouTube hopefully tonight. The recordings will be available hopefully tonight.